many great things a person could do, Lilu Nishmat. Also, the Poskim, the Shulchan Gavoa, the YUSHVO, the Rabbi Palim, the Rabbi Ishai brings, there was a custom back then also to make a meal on the day of the yahrzeit, in order that the people should come, make brachot, and do Lilu Nishmat for the iftar. And then many Bukharians have this custom as well. It is very, very well known as YUSHVO. If you read a little bit about this custom and the background behind it, if you read Avraham Aminov's Likutei Dinim, he's a great Bukharian sage that the Bukharians had. He was from Bukhara. He moved to Yerushalayim. He wrote the Likutei Dinim in the year 1900 after he went through a lot of the Bukharian customs, and he was checking them and making sure they were valid and seeing the background behind it, what's the reason. And he traveled from Bukhara back to Yerushalayim many times in order to validate a lot of the minhagim. And he said one of the minhagim the Bukharians has was to do YUSHVO. YUSHVO comes from the word yeshiva. They used to go and make a yeshiva, sitting and learning. The wealthy people in Bukhara, they used to, before Soyuz, before the Soviet Union came, they used to have, the wealthy people used to hire rabbis to bring them to their house and make them learn Mishnah. As the Manar Hida writes, that one of the greatest things a person can do, Leilu Nishmat, is learn Mishnah. Mishnah is the Otiyot Neshama, and it saves a person from Gilgulim, he writes. So therefore, they would bring rabbis to learn Mishnah and Zohar. Also, Rabbi Yehuda writes, that learning Zohar, Leilu Nishmat, the Niftar, also is tremendous Leilu Neshama, and protects them from many things. So therefore, they used to bring people to the rabbis to the house. They would do limud, they would do Mishnah and Zohar, and the family members and the rabbis would have a meal. That's it. And only the wealthy people used to do that. It wasn't everybody would do YUSHVO. It was just the wealthy people who could afford such a thing. And then, after they would finish the limud, they would do kaddish, they would do the finish the learning, and that was the YUSHVO. But he says if people eventually started taking this and doing just meals, they focused on the meal, and if he's right, so Avraham Aminov himself writes, if it's going to be a meal that's going to be people schmoozing and people just eating, and he says especially if they're going to eat without brachot, and God forbid it's going to cause a sin to the niftar, it's going to be because of the person who passed away, they're going to come to do sins because of him, and not to do mitzvot, so it's better not to do the whole thing, and give that money you would spend on the food and the rabbis, go and give it to a tzedakah, give it to rabbis that should learn, and no meal. That way we don't want to give any sins to the person who passed away. In his name we shouldn't do anything wrong. And he himself says you shouldn't do YUSHVO if it's going to be done wrong. And this is what he writes, and there's a professor from Boston University who wrote a whole article on the progression of the YUSHVO, how the YUSHVO changed. He says once Soyuz came, Soviet Union came, so nobody was able to do mitzvot in public. People used to get prosecuted. So they used to cover up their prayers and their learning as a social gathering. They used to say, no, we're not doing anything, we're not praying, we're not learning, we're just getting together, friends and family. So therefore the YUSHVO became the social thing. We see today very much, YUSHVO is a very social event. People say, oh, you're going to go to so-and-so YUSHVO. God forbid, you can't miss so-and-so's YUSHVO. It's a very social gathering, like almost like a wedding. But that originally was never like that. It was only because of Soyuz that it became that way. So because of Soviet Union oppression, that's why it turned into a social gathering. It got covered up. And maybe on the way, because the Bukharians, they moved, so the mentality still stayed in their mind. But originally, if you learn the minhag from Mikaro, from the source, it's not supposed to be a social gathering. It's supposed to be that we go, get together, do Leilu Nishmat. Not to necessarily just remember him. It has to be that we're doing mitzvot. And if we're doing averot, so what's the point of getting together and spending all this money? So therefore, everyone would agree. The Rabbi Zino Mutzafi also agrees about this custom of getting together and do the Azkara. If people are coming together to drink alcohol, they're coming together just to eat without brachot, they're coming together that while the rabbi is speaking, nobody's listening to him, and everybody's just saying the whole time, shh, quiet, please, we want quiet, and nobody's listening. So we're doing all these sins for the sake of the niftar, for the sake of the person passed away. So what's the point? Why we waste all this money? Better not to do all this whole thing, not to go and do it for pakazucha to show off how much food we serve, or how many courses we have, which restaurant we did it. It used to be in the home. Do it for Leilu Nishmat. And therefore what? And therefore we shouldn't do all these things. Pay to tzedakah that people should learn will be a bigger Leilu Nishmat. People should learn Torah, that would be Leilu Nishmat. The Chafetz Chaim writes in Shmirat HaLashon, his people think they come 3 times a day to pray Mincha and Shacharit Mincha and Tzei Kaddish. is the greatest thing and that's it. No, the greatest thing is Torah learning, obviously. It's beautiful that people come to say Kaddish, but they have to do Torah learning. It's not enough to do this just to the Kaddish. The Yosef Ometz, the Sefer Yosef Ometz, he writes that learning Torah is 7 times greater than just saying Kaddish. So therefore, a lot of times people should be focusing on the main thing of the Nishmat, and the best way halachically to help somebody who passed away is to do mitzvot on their sake. Not just to remember him, not just to make a fancy meal for him out of kavod. It's rather to do a real mitzvah. And if you're going to do averot, better not to do it. Better not to do it at all. The person who has passed away will thank you. He will say, thank you didn't make a meal and make all this balagan to me. Thank you. I appreciate that you went to go give tzedakah. I appreciate you went to go learn Mishnah. I appreciate you went to go and support people to learn Torah in my name. It would be better maybe on the day of the Azkara to come to Bet Knesset and to make a shiur. Give a buffet style, give a shiur. Everybody will learn. No schmoozing, no talking. Especially with the ladies in the YUSHVO, it's very hard for them not to talk. You're putting them in a test every single time. So therefore, maybe a person should try to reassess. We should recalculate and realize, are we doing it for ourselves for kavod, or are we doing it really lunishmat to help the niftar? And if we really want to help the niftar, we should do it the right way. The right way is